Full Metal Alchemist, the Nina Tucker incident. When Edward and Alphonse Elric meet Sho Tucker, he does not immediately look like a monster. He looks like a tired father and a struggling researcher. He's a state alchemist known as the Sowing Life Alchemist, because he once created a chimera that could speak. He has a young daughter named Nina and a family dog named Alexander. At first, the scene feels warm. Nina is innocent, playful, and lonely. She's happy to have Edward and Alphonse around, and they play with her like she's part of their own family. This peaceful beginning matters because it allows the viewer to see Nina as a real child before the tragedy happens. She laughs, trusts people, and loves her father. The horror begins when Sho Tucker needs to prove that he still deserves his position as a state alchemist. Instead of protecting his child, he uses her. He fuses Nina and Alexander into one speaking chimera. This moment is disturbing because Nina still recognizes Edward. She still has enough of herself left to reach toward him, but she does not fully understand what has happened to her. Edward becomes furious because he understands the cost of forbidden alchemy. He and Alphonse once tried to bring back their dead mother through human transmutation, and they paid a terrible price. However, their mistake came from childhood grief. Tucker's act comes from selfish ambition. He's an adult who chooses his reputation over his child. The scene is even darker because there's no real rescue. There's no long battle, no powerful speech, and no clever way to undo the damage. What happened to Nina cannot be fixed. That is why Sho Tucker remains one of the most hated characters in anime. In a world filled with homunculi, war, and forbidden science, his evil feels painfully human. He did not need supernatural power to become a monster. He only needed ambition without love. Made in Abyss. Mitty's fate. At first, Made in Abyss looks like a beautiful adventure. The abyss is strange, colorful, and mysterious. It feels like a magical place full of hidden secrets, but the story slowly reveals that the abyss is not a playground. It is a dangerous place that takes something from everyone who enters it. Mitty begins as a normal child. She is cheerful, curious, and full of life. Her friendship with Nanachi makes her story even more painful because she is not just another victim. She is someone Nanachi loves deeply. That bond becomes the emotional center of the tragedy. The main source of the horror is Bondrewd. He's not frightening because he screams or acts wild. He's frightening because he's calm. He speaks like everything he does is research. To him, children are not children. They're test subjects. This makes him deeply disturbing because he has removed guilt from his actions. He believes cruelty can be justified if it produces knowledge. Bondrewd uses Nanachi and Mitty in an experiment involving the curse of the abyss. Nanachi survives with their mind intact. Mitty suffers a fate worse than death. She loses her human form, loses the life she once had, and becomes almost impossible to kill. Her body regenerates, but this does not save her. It only makes her suffering continue. Nanachi is left in an impossible situation. Mitty is still alive, but she's not truly living. Nanachi cannot bring her back, but also cannot move on. This makes the moment when Reg ends Mitty's suffering very painful. It is both mercy and loss. Nanachi asks for it because there is no other way, but that does not make it easier. Grave for the Fireflies. The ending. Grave of the Fireflies follows Seita and his little sister, Setsuko, during the final days of World War II. After an air raid, they lose their home and their mother. Seita is only 14. While Setsuko is only 4. This matters because both of them are children. Seita tries to act like an adult, but he is still a traumatized boy who has lost almost everything. Seita hides their mother's death from Setsuko because he wants to protect her from the full truth. He tries to become both brother and parent, even though he's not ready for that responsibility. His love for Setsuko is real, but love alone is not enough to survive war. The story is painful because it does not make the situation simple. Seita makes mistakes. He's proud, and he leaves his aunt's house because he does not want to be treated as a burden. At the same time, his aunt is harsh because she is also living through wartime scarcity. The film shows a society where everyone is struggling. The children suffer the most. The most heartbreaking part is Setsuko's slow starvation. Her death does not happen suddenly. She becomes weaker over time. She hallucinates. She tries to eat things that are not food. She's too young to understand why life has become so cruel. When Seita finally gets food, it is already too late. After Setsuko dies, Seita cremates her body and keeps her ashes in the same candy tin that once held one of her small joys. The tin becomes one of the saddest symbols in anime. At first, it represents childhood sweetness. By the end, it carries the remains of the child herself. Seita also dies, and the film actually begins with his death. The audience knows from the start that the story will not end happily, but still hopes emotionally that something will change. The final image of Seita and Setsuko together as spirits gives a small feeling of peace, but it does not erase the tragedy. The film reminds us that war is not only suffered by soldiers, it is also suffered by children, families, and people the world forgets. Takopi's original sin. Shizuku and Marina's horrible lives. At first, Takopi's original sin looks like a cute and harmless show. Takopi is an adorable alien from planet Happy, and his goal is to spread happiness on Earth. He has strange gadgets, a cheerful personality, and a simple belief that every problem can be fixed if people smile. Then he meets Shizuku, and the story becomes much more painful. Shizuku is a young girl whose life is already broken before Takopi arrives. She's bullied at school, neglected at at home and emotionally isolated. Her dog, Chappie, becomes one of her only sources of comfort because she does not receive enough love and protection from the people around her. Shizuku's pain is not shown as one sudden event. It is shown as a daily life where she has almost no safety or support. Marina first looks like a simple bully. She hurts Shizuku and seems cruel, but the story later shows that Marina is also a child being damaged by her home life. Her family situation is filled with anger, instability, and abuse. Her hatred towards Shizuku grows from problems created by their parents. This makes the story more uncomfortable because it does not give us one innocent child and one evil child. It shows two children who are both being failed in different ways. The suffering both of these girls experience end up leading to them doing horrible things, whether it be taking their own lives, killing others, or physically harming innocents. Takopi wants to help, but he does not understand human suffering. He genuinely wants Shizuku and Marina to be happy. Problem is that he thinks sadness is simple. He believes gadgets, optimism, and time travel can erase deep trauma. Instead, his interference often makes things worse, because he tries to fix pain without understanding its cause. That is one meaning of the original sin in the story. It is the mistake of trying to save someone without truly understanding them. Takopi brings tools, but not wisdom. He brings hope, but not emotional maturity. Higurashi When They Cry, the classroom horror moment. Higurashi When They Cry is a story built on contrast. At first, Hinamizawa looks like a peaceful rural village. The main characters go to school, play games, tease each other, and enjoy ordinary friendship. The story feels like a slice-of-life anime about children growing up together in a small community. Then the peaceful life starts to break. The story introduces rumors of murders, disappearances, secrets, paranoia, and the curse of Oyashiro. Slowly, the viewer begins to question whether the village was ever truly safe. Rina's classroom breakdown is one of the clearest examples of this darkness. By the time the scene happens, Rina has been pushed deep into fear and delusion. She believes she has discovered a terrible truth about the village. She believes there's a conspiracy, and her mind can no longer separate real danger from imagined danger. This is important because Rina is not acting like a simple evil character. She is convinced she is doing what she has to do. The classroom should be one of the safest places in the story. It's where the characters usually laugh, study, and play their club games. Rina turns that same space into a trap. She takes her classmates hostage, surrounds the room with gasoline, and threatens a disaster that could kill everyone inside. The setting makes the scene more disturbing because ordinary objects like desks, windows, and the chalkboard become part of the nightmare. The tragedy is stronger because the person at the center is Rina. She is usually one of the kindest and most emotional members of the group. If a stranger did this, the scene would still be frightening. But because it is Rina, it becomes heartbreaking. Keiichi is not only trying to stop a dangerous situation, he's trying to reach his friend before fear completely consumes her. Madoka Magica, Mami's death. Puella Magi Madoka Magica starts off looking like a bright magical girl story. It has colorful designs, cute characters, friendship, and heroic battles. Mami Tomo appears to be the perfect mentor. She is elegant, calm, powerful, and experienced. To Madoka and Sayaka, she looks like someone who understands the magical girl world and knows how to survive inside it. But episode 3 slowly shows that Mami's confidence is not as simple as it looks. She tells Madoka and Sayaka about her past, especially the traffic accident that led to her contract with Kyuubi. She did not have much time to think about her wish. She only made the contract because she wanted to survive. That shows that becoming a magical girl is not always a dream. Sometimes it begins with fear and desperation. Mami also warns Sayaka about making wishes for other people. She explains that a person must understand their own wish clearly before using it for someone else. This warning matters because the story later shows how dangerous unclear emotions can become in the magical girl system. Mami already understands that life is lonely and painful, even though she hides that loneliness behind beauty and strength. That is why Madoka's admiration means so much to her. When Madoka tells Mami that she wants to become a magical girl like her, Mami feels less alone. For the first time in a long while, she begins to imagine a future where she does not have to fight by herself. This happiness makes the tragedy worse. During the fight against the witch Charlotte, Mami looks like she's winning. She fights beautifully and confidently. Then Charlotte suddenly changes form and kills her. The scene is shocking because it happens so quickly. There's no heroic goodbye, no final lesson, and no time to prepare emotionally. One moment, Mami is the strong mentor. The next moment, she is gone. Neon Genesis Evangelion final episodes. By episodes 25 and 26 of Neon Genesis Evangelion, the Human Instrumentality Project has begun. This project is about merging human souls into one shared existence. On the surface, it sounds like a solution to loneliness, because people would no longer be separated from one another. However, the final episodes show that this solution is also frightening. If every person becomes one, individuality disappears. Pain may reduce, but personal identity also loses meaning. Instead of giving a normal action ending, the anime becomes a psychological examination. Shinji is questioned by himself and by the voices of others. He's forced to look at why he pilots the EVA, why he wants praise, why he fears rejection, and why he believes he has no value unless other people need him. This is what makes the ending disturbing and educational. The show explains that Shinji's biggest enemy is not only the angels, Nerve, or Seal. His biggest enemy is the way he sees himself. He thinks that if people reject him, then he has no reason to exist. He wants closeness, but he is also afraid of being hurt. Because of this, he often runs away emotionally before others can reject him first. Other characters reflect similar struggles. Asuka builds her identity around being a successful EVA pilot. Rei struggles with her own sense of self and existence. Misato carries guilt and emotional confusion from her past. The final episodes show that many characters are trapped because they depend on outside roles to feel real. The ending becomes hopeful only after Shinji begins to understand that his self-image is not fixed. He realizes that he can exist in more than one way. He can be afraid and still alive. He can be imperfect and still have value. The famous congratulations scene may feel strange, but its meaning is clear. Shinji has taken a small step toward accepting himself. Heavenly Delusion. Kiruko and Robin's scene. Heavenly Delusion is already set in a dangerous post-disaster world. Maru and Kiruko travel through ruined places, fight man-eating creatures, and search for answers. However, this moment is especially disturbing because the threat does not come from a monster. It comes from a person connected to Kiruko's past. Kiruko's identity is complicated before this scene. Kiruko carries the mind of Haruki inside the body of Kiriko, his older sister. This creates deep confusion around memory, body, gender, and personal identity. Through the journey, Kiruko is still trying to understand who they are now. Robin Inazaki is one of the people connected to that old life. In Kiruko's memory, Robin is tied to safety, admiration, and the past Haruki once knew. That is why the reunion feels important at first. Kiruko is emotional because finding Robin seems like finding a missing piece of their identity. Instead, Robin betrays that trust. He sexually assaults Kiruko and also attacks Kiruko's fragile sense of self. The scene is not only physical violence, it is psychological violence because Robin uses Kiruko's confusion, memory, and emotional attachment against them. This moment is dark because it shows how dangerous idealized memories can be. Kiruko remembered Robin as someone dependable, but the real Robin is not the safe person they believed in. Maru finds Kiruko and attacks Robin in rage. His anger makes sense because he sees someone he loves deeply harmed. However, Kiruko stops him from killing Robin. This does not erase the trauma. It shows that Kiruko is still processing what happened and is not ready for the situation to become another act of violence. Maru later tells Kiruko that he loves the person they are now. This matters because Kiruko feels broken and unsure of their identity. Maru's words do not magically heal the trauma. They offer care, acceptance, and reassurance. Monster, Red Rose Mansion Massacre, and Johan's childhood revelation. Monster is not a supernatural story. Its horror comes from human experiments, political cruelty, trauma, manipulation, and the question of how a person can be shaped into something terrifying. Johan is frightening because he does not act like a normal villain. He's calm, intelligent, empty, and able to manipulate people with terrifying precision. The Red Rose Mansion is connected to Franz Bonaparte and the experiments surrounding the Liebert twins, Johann and Nina. The mansion is not just a building. It represents a place where children, identity, and memory were treated like tools. The horror comes from the idea that people tried to create perfect children through control, isolation, and psychological manipulation. In episode 67, Johann meets Nina in the burned ruins of the Red Rose Mountain and describes what he says happened there. He tells her about being taken from the Three Frogs and placed under observation. He also describes the day of the massacre, when many people at the mansion died after drinking poisoned wine during a celebration. First, it seemed like Johann is remembering his own direct experience. Then the revelation becomes more disturbing. Nina realizes that she was the one who actually witnessed the deaths at the Red Rose Mountain, not Johann. She was the child who saw that horror directly and then returned home. Johann had taken her memory and made it part of himself. The Red Rose Mansion revelation is dark because it shows that monsters are not always created in one moment. Sometimes they're shaped slowly by people who treat children like experiments instead of human beings. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Goodbye!